Sigurour Ingi Johannson, who is the Minister of Fisheries and Agriculture in Iceland. Minister Johannson previously served as Minister for the Environment. Actually, I believe simultaneously served as Minister of the Environment and Minister of Fisheries, which must have been quite an interesting experience. Minister Johannson, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by thanking our host in Chile for inviting to this important conference, building on an initiative launched a year ago in Washington. It was a rare pleasure to be in this beautiful place to focus on the oceans, both the opportunities and the challenges we are facing. Protection and sustainable use of the ocean has received greater attention in recent years. Iceland particularly notes that the oceans have received special emphasis in the recently approved Sustainable Development Goals. Giving the oceans a standalone goal was an important step. The oceans are essential for global sustainable development. In Iceland, we had to put this into practice decades ago, as we rely on fisheries for our livelihood. The transition of the Icelandic economy in the 20th century into a modern welfare society can largely be contributed to the developments in the fisheries sector. We have not always been successful in sustainable use of our resources. We have made mistakes, but we were willing to learn from them and make necessary changes. The most fundamental management change took place around 30 years ago, laying the ground for a sustainable fisheries management system. Each fishing vessel was allocated an individual quota, a percentage of the total allowable catch based on catch history. The size of the total allowable catches, the TAC, the TAC, is decided each year on the basis of purely scientific advice from the Marine Research Institute. This leaves no room for political speculation. At the time, the new system was controversial, but today we have a sensible, functioning, and a sustainable framework. To put this in numbers, in the year 1981, the total catch of cod, which is our most important stock in Icelandic waters, was 460,000 tons. In 2013, it was down to 236,000 tons, but the export value more than doubled in real terms. While the amount went down by 50%, the real value doubled, more than doubled. This system has also proven positive for the environment, with fewer ships and lower emission. Today, fisheries in Iceland are efficient and highly profitable, but not least sustainable, as the fish stocks are in a healthy condition. This summer, it became clear that our most valuable fish resource, the cod stock, is now biologically stronger than it has been for half a century, for 50 years. Did we back then know the outcome for sure in advance? Honestly, no, not entirely. But we tried to come up with a reasonable system that worked, and so it did. Since then, the key words associated to fishing in Iceland are science-based and sustainable. But the system does not run by itself. We have efficient enforcement of compliance and transparent regulations. Inspectors board fishing vessels regularly, and all catches are thoroughly recorded at landing. The Directorate of Fisheries and the Coast Guard keep a watchful eye and offenders are caught and sanctioned. In addition, the Icelandic fishing sector does not receive any distortive subsidies. In an exclusive economic zone in Iceland that spans 760,000 square kilometers, there are around 30 marine protected areas. While some grounds are closed during the spawning season, others are permanently off limits, and the Marine Research Institute can instantly close any area of concern. With sustainable use of the oceans, Icelanders have been able to secure their country's food security for centuries. Ladies and gentlemen, the global community has committed itself to end hunger in the world. This will depend on how successful we are in utilizing resources in a sustainable way. If we want the oceans to be an essential part of this commitment, science-based sustainable harvesting of marine resources must become a universal practice. In Iceland, the saying has been, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Now we might add, teach a man to fish sustainably and you also feed generations to come. Although Iceland has only 330,000 inhabitants, yes, you heard right, 330,000, we need all hands on deck to secure the healthy future of the ocean, large and small. Iceland has for almost 2 decades contributed to capacity building in fisheries management in developing countries. We have done so through the UN Fisheries Training Program in Iceland. Around 300 experts from 50 countries have graduated and over 1,000 specialists have participated in shorter program. I am pleased to announce our commitment for an additional contribution to the Fisheries Training Program with a special focus on small island developing states. We have come a long way in our understanding of the challenges related to sustainable conserve and manage the oceans for current and future generations. However, understanding the vast oceans can be compared by sailing towards the horizon. The distance stays the same and more miles are still to be covered. We have charts to guide us on this journey. It is important to base our practice firmly on frameworks as established by the United Nations, the Convention on the Law of the Sea, and the Fish Stocks Agreement. Sustainable management must start on a local level, extend to a regional level, and in the end, we must all be accountable. It is important to use all tools available, not least the Regional Fisheries Management Organization and FAO. One of the big challenges that we need to address on a global scale is IUU fisheries. The FAO agreement on port state measures is one of the instruments to tackle this serious problem. Iceland is pleased to confirm its ratification of the FAO agreement on port state measures and strongly encourage other countries to do the same, and in this way show their commitment to ending IUU fishing. Climate change is one of the greatest threats to the ocean today. Increase of temperature and ocean acidification will put the entire marine ecosystem at risk. The only way to turn this around is by cutting greenhouse gas emission. And Iceland aims to take a part in a collective delivery with the European Union and Norway of 40% reduction of greenhouse gas emission by 2030. Distinguished guests, finally, an integrated approach and increased cooperation will be of fundamental importance to meet the challenges in front of us. Our oceans is an important opportunity to share practices and to discuss ways forward. Iceland remains committed to be a leading advocate for the oceans. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very inspirational presentation. Next speaker is Minister Manuel Pinto de Abreu. He is the Secretary of State of the Sea from Portugal. Secretary Pinto trained as an oceanographer and is responsible for designing the Ocean Affairs Mission and the Continental Platform Extension Mission of Portugal. Thank you, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Excellencies and distinguished participants. Allow me to start this intervention by expressing our gratitude for the opportunity to be here today. It is a great honor that Portugal participates in this second edition of the Our Ocean Conference. On behalf of the Portuguese government, I must congratulate Minister Geraldo Munhoz and the government of Chile for promoting the continuation of this very important initiative launched in 2014 by Secretary of State John Kerry. Portugal holds a very long tradition on the ocean and is determined to become a leading coastal nation of the new era of discoveries, an era that we consider as began when the Constitution of the Oceans, the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, entered into force. Aligned with this ambitious vision, and since then, the Portuguese have been preparing, approving, and adopting reflection documents, both strategic and operational, in order to properly promote the exploration, exploitation, and preservation of the ocean. At the beginning of this century, in 2002, an Oceanic Strategic Commission was created in Portugal, and its final report, published in 2004, led to the drafting of a national ocean strategy, approved in 2006, and of a non-paper that, together with France and Spain, led to the adoption in 2007 of the European Union Integrated Maritime Policy. One should highlight that both these guiding documents pointed out for the need of a holistic approach to maritime issues, promoting increased coordination between different policy areas to achieve a coherent economic growth based on all maritime sectors and cross-cutting issues. Leveraged on the first successful initiative, Portugal prepared in 2009 a non-paper which led to a subsequent joint initiative with France, Ireland, Spain, and the United Kingdom on an European Union maritime strategy for the Atlantic, adopted later in 2011. This strategy includes a very relevant international dimension contributing to the global ocean governance and cooperation. Nonetheless, following a comprehensive nationwide discussion participated by thousands of Portuguese, a new national ocean strategy was approved in 2013. This new strategy, covering the period up to 2020, right now, but we are thinking on expanding it to 2050, clearly states the will of the Portuguese to create value from the ocean for the benefit of all, today and in the future. The value we want to create must be the right one, a better one, and also it must be sustainable. Required thereafter that proper knowledge of the ocean, both for living and non-living resources, is produced and guides our action so that the right value can be created. Innovation, efficiency, and efficacy are promoted so that the exploitation of our ocean, both through conventional and new maritime uses and activities, supports a better value. Preservation of our ocean is a first and permanent action principle supporting an adequate equilibrium of the economic, social, and environmental pillars of sustainability. Today, all the Portuguese consider that Portugal is ocean. Because of the extension of the national maritime space, millions of square kilometers across the North Atlantic and less than 100,000 square kilometers of land territory. Because of its geography, a territory strategically located at the geographical axis of all the European Union. Because of its rich natural diversity, from the coast to the ultra-deep ocean, from the soft sands to the extreme conditions of the mid-ocean hydrothermal vent fields. And, of course, because of the national maritime identity of the Portuguese, an heritage from the 15th century era of discoveries, and the natural value for the future. The firm belief that Portugal is ocean guides the international Portuguese actions on our ocean, namely those within the United Nations, close to the European Union and to the community of Portuguese-speaking countries. The Portuguese National Ocean Strategy 2013-2020 invites all Portuguese from the private and public sectors, from academia to non-governmental organizations, to fully participate in the making of the new era of discoveries. International partnerships are also considered a must to fully take advantage of the sea of opportunities offered by our ocean. The National Ocean Strategy, in addition to ensuring the promotion of traditional activities, aims to develop emergent sectors that have a high potential on job creation and sustainable growth, such as aquaculture, coastal tourism, marine biotechnology, marine energy resource, and marine mineral resources. An action plan to implement development of the model adopted, the Blue Growth Model, is a keystone of our National Ocean Strategy. This model intends to promote smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth, thus aligning with what marine resources can provide with the perspective for sea economy, employment, and wealth. Within the strategy action plan, programs and projects are clearly defined, included but not limited to objectives, expected outcomes, those responsible, the time schedule, and the resources. This framework is of the utmost importance to make the strategy more than a goodwill. With important initiatives already concluded, in line with our permanent maritime commitment, the Portuguese action towards our ocean has been and will be underway. As a contribution to the global mobilization, Portugal hosted this past June the Blue Week Lisbon 2015, with several important maritime events taking place. A ministerial meeting where 70 ministers responsible for oceans, fisheries, maritime affairs from all over the world shared their views and priorities and adopted a declaration. The Blue Business Forum, a show of science and technology, and also the World Ocean Summit. A second edition of the Lisbon Blue Week was already announced for the summer of 2016. Please save the date. A major survey of North Atlantic Ocean, covering mostly the Portuguese maritime space, is taking place, and an area of approximately 2.6 million square kilometers was already covered since 2005. This survey is to be continued, and full coverage of Portuguese maritime space from the coast to the outer limits of the extended continental shelf is sought, and is considered to be a major contribution to the increased knowledge on deep and ultra-deep ocean ecosystems. A pioneer initiative on maritime spatial planning was concluded with the approval by the Parliament of a framework law for the management and spatial planning of the Portuguese maritime space. This law will allow for better preservation of our ocean. The development of sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, mostly offshore, has been a main objective of Portuguese operational programs for fisheries supported under the European Union Common Fisheries Policy. The new operational program is drafted and will last until 2020. The Portuguese commitment on more efficient and sustainable fisheries and aquaculture has been provided with a funding plan of more than 200 million euros up to 2020. An evaluation of the environmental status of the Portuguese maritime space was conducted and was concluded that the general status was good. A monitoring program up to 2020 was drafted together with a plan to improve or recover, whenever possible, the good environmental status of specific sites. This program has been provided with a funding plan of more than 40 million euros up to 2020. The establishment of marine protected areas is a commitment fully undertaken by Portugal. From the pioneer initiatives on marine protected areas beyond the 200 nautical miles limit to a network of coastal areas, the government has approved the establishment of new open ocean marine protected areas covering more than 300,000 square kilometers, so that more than 10% of Portuguese maritime space will be soon protected. The evaluation and inventory of marine biodiversity within Portuguese maritime space is also not an objective. Every year since 2010, hundreds of Portuguese and international scientists and students on board of several Portuguese ships like those of the famous Portuguese White Fleet take part on this major research program. The hundreds of thousands of data and samples collected during the program are available to all the scientific community, soon Marine Biodiversity Information System, that we invite you all to join. This program will be continued beyond 2020. To conclude, Portugal is fully committed to our ocean, determined to develop a blue economy supported in the sustainable use of the oceans and these resources. Portugal has been historically known as a maritime nation and is today better prepared for a new era of discoveries. It is clear for Portugal, and I quote Secretary of State John Kerry, that our ocean is a task too big for any government or institution to handle alone. And therefore it is our commitment to promote integrated and collective efforts at a basin, regional or global scale, so that development of a prosperous blue economy allows for the creation of the right, better and sustainable value from the ocean for the benefit of the actual and future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary Pinto, for that excellent presentation. Last but not least, we have Demetrio Ignacio, who is the Vice Minister for the Environment and Natural Resources of the Philippines. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, and Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me express to you my profound thanks for still being here at this time. I am the last speaker for the day. So care for our oceans should be a global priority. It is our priority in the Philippines. We have adopted the ridge-to-reef approach as our national strategy to protect, conserve, and sustainably utilize our coastal and marine resources to better serve our people. We have initiated major programs, our modest contributions that will benefit our coastal areas and the ocean where we live. We have 70 national marine protected areas covering 1.4 million hectares and more than 1,700 locally managed marine protected areas covering more than 1.3 million hectares. Our law provides that at least 15% of coastal areas should be designated as protected areas. This is very important to us considering that only 5% of our coral reef remains in excellent conditions. We are undertaking a major mangrove rehabilitation program covering 46,000 hectares, taking off from the painful lessons we learned during Typhoon Haiyan to restore our coastal ecosystem and protect our coastal communities. We will complete this program by the end of the year. We are also undertaking a massive reforestation program where we are planting 1.5 billion trees in 1.5 million hectares in 6 years to support our ridge-to-reef approach, among others. Our efforts have merited the inclusion of the Philippines as one of the top 5 countries in the world with the greatest forest gain from 2010 to 2015, next to China, Australia, Chile, and the United States, according to the recent FAO Global Forest Resources Assessment of 2015. We are active in regional and international cooperation on coastal and marine and ocean concerns. We are always second to the United States in terms of the number of volunteers during the annual International Coastal Cleanup Day. We will continue with this leading role on coastal cleanup. We are an active partner in the Coral Triangle, a 5.7 million square kilometers marine area in the Western Pacific Ocean covering 6 countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, Solomon Islands, and Timor-Leste. It is one of the richest marine areas in the world and considered the epicenter of marine life abundance and diversity. It only covers 2% of the world's ocean, but contains 53% of the world's coral reefs. It has the greatest extent of mangroves in the world and disposing area of the largest tuna population. The Coral Triangle Initiative is focused on the cooperation on coral reefs, fisheries, food security, climate change adaptation, poverty reduction, and biodiversity conservation. It was formed in 2007 as an initiative of APEC with assistance from the United States. The Philippines, being at the apex of the triangle, shall continue to pursue the alignment of our policies and programs to the needs of the Coral Triangle. We are hosting this year the APEC Leaders Meeting. As we speak, we are hosting in the Philippines right now the APEC High-Level Policy Dialogue on Food Security and Blue Economy. We are pushing 3 measures in 3 areas: towards resilient oceans, coastal resources, and ecosystem and sustainable aquaculture through international cooperation, enhanced capacities, innovation, and marine pollution control. Second, fish loss reduction by improving food safety and value. And third, increased food security and inclusive growth by promoting agribusiness, market development, open and fair trade, and integration of small-scale fishermen into the global food chains. The Philippines is an archipelago of 7,100 islands. More than 60% of our 100 million population live in coastal areas. Our development, our future, and our survival lies in the sea. Let us all be mindful of our actions, especially our neighbors in Southeast Asia, as responsible members of the international community. Finally, we would like to thank the government of Chile for its hosting of this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Minister. That was excellent. We have a very quick set of remarks from Abdullah Al-Azam Jacob, who's the Deputy Minister for the Ministry of Environment and Forests, who will speak quickly from the floor.
Thank you. I'm from Bangladesh, very long from here. Excellencies, Bangladesh would like to work very closely with the process of our ocean to keep momentum of our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's leadership that make it possible to establish our sovereign rights over the marine territory of Bangladesh. Bangladesh's maritime boundary has been extended and sovereign rights have been established on 1,80,813 square kilometers of marine territory. 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic zone and 354 nautical miles of continental shelf after positive verdicts in international courts. Excellencies, with the able leadership of our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh has been moving in the right direction in exploiting blue economy, and we have already worked out a memorandum of understanding with the India and China for greater collaboration towards sustainable development and marine resources. Our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina already expressed her resolve to turn the Bay of Bengal into a hub for sustainable economic development and thus prosperity on the country, and she already detailed out her plan to sustainably harness the marine resources. As our Prime Minister affords Bangladesh's commitment towards development of blue economy, her emphasis is always towards conservation and balanced development of natural resources, keeping integrity of environmental and biodiversity except while pursuing the much needed development for the people of country. For her great leadership in environment, conservation and addressing climate change, this year she has been awarded the Champions of the Earth by the United Nations. Our Prime Minister already called upon his regional and international communities to come up with pragmatic strategies and perspectives towards blue economy. Finally, I want to say we have a great challenge ahead of us towards development of blue economy. We are determined to achieve success in marine biodiversity and ecosystem conservation. Let us all work together and forge a network of cooperation to resolve the challenges. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Minister. And please join me in thanking all of our speakers for the tremendous presentations they gave. We heard a lot of commitments and announcements and initiatives that are very exciting, so thank you. And lastly, before we leave, I just want to close by saying this has been an amazing day in this beautiful place, filled with energy and hope and commitment for moving forward for our oceans. So please join me in thanking the government of Chile for an absolutely terrific day.